check 1 2. All right. Welcome to the Dominance Academy. Happy New Year. 2025 is upon us. You've got yet another year to fuck off. Nah, I hope you don't fuck off this year. I hope you didn't fuck off last year. Set some new goals. Yep. Yeah, I've got some new goals for my business. And hopefully this year it'll pan out that I'll be doing traveling workshops, working with a group of coaches and doing things out of the country and, going to probably South America, perhaps Europe, and doing live coaching with groups of guys. And let's see. Holidays were good, so I hope you guys had good holidays with your families and all that good shit. And while I was away, my girlfriend and I went and saw the movie Babygirl. And I'm doing this review, not really because I want to do a movie review. I typically don't do this, but my friend Lucario mentioned it, and he said that, he asked if I could see the movie and mention what I thought. So shout out to Lucario. If you're watching this one's for you. So we went and saw the Babygirl movie, and let's see here. Gonna pull this up. I just want to get all right, just the Wikipedia. All right. So it's got starring Nicole Kidman, Harris Dickinson, Sophie Wilde, and Antonio Banderas. And it was really cool, actually, seeing Antonio Banderas again. I haven't seen him in film in quite a while. He's always like the same dude, though. But anyways, all right, so the basic plot is Romy Mathis, right? Oh, warning, spoiler alerts. So if you haven't seen the movie, don't watch this. But hopefully you read the title. But yeah, she's CEO of a tech company, and she's really dissatisfied with her sex life. And one of Romy's new interns, Samuel, propositions her during a private meeting, and she objects, then gives in and kisses him. Initially ambivalent about the incident, the two meet in a hotel room. Romy expresses concern that she may be taking advantage of Samuel due to their power difference, but Samuel explains to her that he is the one with the power, as he could get her fired with one phone call. The two continue to meet up in multiple rendezvous, which Romy frequently acts as the submissive partner. Samuel continues to push boundaries by appearing unexpectedly at her home under the pretense that he is returning her laptop. Feeling disrespected, Romy lashes out at Samuel, telling him that her family is everything to her and never to show up again. The two argue but continue their affair. Soon afterward, Romy is angry with Samuel when he shows up unannounced at her house again, accompanying Asmi, who works for Romy, to her daughter's birthday party. Asmi informs Romy that she knows everything about their affair and tells Romy what needs to happen to prevent Asmi from coming forward with what she knows. Unable to handle the stress, Romy tells her husband Jacob that she's dissatisfied with her sex life and has never had an orgasm with him. Later, she confesses about the affair to Jacob, who throws her out. Some while later, Jacob walks into their country house to find Romy and Samuel there. He confronts Samuel in a fistfight, but Samuel comes to Jacob's aid after he has a panic attack. A scorned Samuel leaves, while Romy and Jacob decide to rekindle their marriage and sex life. They reenact a sex act that occurred in Romy's affair, leading to Romy's first orgasm with Jacob. Samuel later takes a new job in Japan. At work, Romy's subordinate asks if she has anything to do with Samuel leaving and invites her to his house the following week, when he'll have the place to himself, to talk about it. Disgusted, Romy finally states firmly that she is not afraid and tells him to get out of her office. So that's like a basic rundown of the film. As far as the storytelling aspect, I thought that it was pretty ham-fisted. All right, it was not smooth at all, and I didn't quite like it. So like in the beginning, she's like going to work, and this scene just like out of the blue, it's like this random dog is attacking some guy in the middle of Manhattan and like biting his arm and all this shit, and he's like super aggressive, and all these people are around like with their phones. And then randomly the Samuel, we don't know him yet, he whistles, and the dog immediately stops what he's doing, goes over to Samuel, and he gives the dog a treat, to kind of show that he has this power over animals or something. He's some kind of like commanding person, or he's some sort of whisperer. And like that whole scene was just really bizarre. It was out of context. It popped up. It was very, I don't know. It was like a big wart. Didn't make sense. And they could have shown his ability to be commanding in a different way that was a little bit more smooth. So then they get into, kissing. There was a kiss because there was some tension, and then they meet up in this hotel room, and she's being very reluctant. And that part of it was very realistic. I would say that because of her position, her sense of power, her sense of authority, who she thought she was, combating with what she wanted, right? Because she would like, in the beginning of the movie, she would go, fuck her husband. She wouldn't come. And then she like scamper off into another room of the house, and watch some BDSM videos and like masturbate until she came. And so that kind of like had you, alluding to the idea that she had this alternative desires. Okay. And, so, you have this first hotel scene, and it's awkward. And I think that this was really a good play, by the writers, because the Christian Grey, I'm this like super dom, I know everything, I've got all the toys, and I'm this fucking billionaire. Like that's too on the nose, right? And it's not very realistic. Like these people may exist in small amounts, but that's not generally who is involved in BDSM, right? I've been at this for a while, and I'm nowhere near like some billionaire, with my own private, like, 4,000 square foot dungeon. You know what I mean? Like that's just not realistic. So they meeting up in the hotel room, and it was awkward in the sense that you could tell that Samuel was not this really polished dom. You could tell that he had enough experience to understand the dynamics and knowing sort of what to do. But he didn't really know how to bring her in. And that was good. Like it just showed like something realistic, right? It showed some of his humanity. And I thought that, Nicole Kidman's character, Romy, she was on point. Now, as things like progressed and he was trying to teach her about dynamics, I found this like huge glaring hole, because he was trying to explain it to her that it's all about consent, right? He needs to consent and she needs to consent, which is true. However, the one glaring thing that he left out as dominant is that they never got the consent of her husband, which I thought was really funny. When you're doing these things correctly with someone who's married or in a full-time long-term relationship, there shouldn't be like sneaking around, right? There should be full information all about, so that people are making informed decisions, and they can talk about these things before they turn into these volcanoes that erupt. However, I understand for writing purposes that would kind of reduce the drama, right? Because now you've got this thing in your head. It's like, oh my gosh, she's cheating on her husband multiple times with this kid, who was at least 20 years younger than her. and that was interesting. That adds like a nice little layer to it, that she was much older than him. And I liked that. But, I remember Lucario saying like how unrealistic it seemed. And I would say that how the interplay in the dynamics were not out of the realm of reality. Okay. What I think was out of the realm of reality is this happening within a corporate environment. I think that someone like her, who was, had worked her ass off up to that point, would not endanger her career like that. I really don't think she would. No, I just really couldn't see that. The reality of her willingly putting her entire career on the line, plus her reputation, I just couldn't see her doing it. Not in real life. So that's the only thing. I think that like if something were to happen, she would just stop it right away, and that would be the end of it. But there was an interesting thing that happened, which can happen in these situations, especially with new subs. And so it was, as I mentioned in the synopsis, there was a birthday party for her son, and Samuel comes with this girl who apparently he's dating, who works for Romy. And he arrives, and she's like, holy shit, like, pulls him into the kitchen. Is like, how can you bring her here? This is my son's birthday. I told you not to come to my home. And he's like, well, but you invited her, and what am I going to tell her? Like, no, I'm not allowed at your house. Like, that would just cause weirdness and drama and shit like that, So that's understandable. Yeah, there we go. So that's, that was like some interesting tension. But the interesting thing about the submissive, like the new submissive thing, is that a lot of times they can get really, really deep in. And especially if it's not led correctly, which Samuel did not. Okay, he just basically said, "Okay, let's start doing this." And like they had this little meeting, and basically he said, "All right, we have to establish some ground rules and things like that." And she's like, "Okay," and he says, "Well, basically, you just do what I say." And that's really not how it works. Like there's a lot of detail in that do what I say. Okay. People have their thing. Like people have the things that they like and dislike. People have their hard and soft limits. They have inquiries and things that they would like to test out. It's not just like, you're a sub and now you have no limits. You belong to me. Like to get to that point requires a lot of time and a shit ton of trust. Okay. And so what she did is she kind of like dove in. I don't know what they did physically, but she definitely dove in emotionally and mentally. And so they're at the party, and she fucking has like this mini meltdown. And she's like, "Are you with her?" Because he brought this girl that he's seeing, and she starts freaking out, like, "No, you belong to me, you're mine," and just like totally fucking like hysterics in the kitchen. And the girl walks in, and she quickly, kind of shuts it down. And she's like, "Oh yeah, like nothing's going on." And the girl's like, "I know what's going on with you guys. It's not that big of a deal. Like I'm dating him, and you're doing this, BDSM thing with him." And a lot of that stuff can happen. Understands that in BDSM, not all dynamic relationships are romantic relationships, and that's a reality. Some people, they go to a dom, either a man or a woman, and they just go to them for a service, kind of like going to a massage therapist, right? But it's a massage for their heart or their mind or something along those lines via certain physical acts. All right. And it could be something sexual. It could be something painful. It could be service oriented. It all depends on like what that person is really into and what makes them tick. And, and the dom is there to kind of facilitate whatever it is that they're seeking. Okay. And so a lot of doms do not have sex with their clients, so to speak. And sometimes they're paid, so I would call them a client, and sometimes they're not paid. And it's just a type of relationship that's formed. And they're not necessarily dating, but a lot of times a certain level of care and understanding and bonding happens there. And I don't see how you couldn't develop some kind of bonding with someone during something like BDSM play. It can get very, very intense. So, but I think we'll be able to, maybe later this month or next month. I met with a woman, interestingly, on Clubhouse, and she's now like just a general healing coach for men. But in her previous life, she used to be a pro-dom. And so she moved from being a pro-dom into the more healing aspects of things. And so I'm going to be having her on, and then I'm going to go on her channel, and we're going to do just some cross-pollination there. And so I'd be very excited to learn more about what she did and what she does now. So that'll be coming up later this month or next month. But as far as this movie goes, I wouldn't say that it's like really far-fetched. And what's his name? Antonio Banderas, he played very well. Like there was, towards the ending, there was this crescendo where he goes to his lake house or something like that, and she's there with Samuel, and he flips out, and they get into a big tussle, and you kind of want him to like just fucking break the shit out of Samuel's nose. I know I would want to, but they both get in some licks, and after a while they're just like spent and just sitting there, and everything just starts coming crashing down on him, on the husband, and he has like this massive panic attack. And Samuel kind of comes in and like kind of recenters him, brings him back down to earth. And I think then he realizes that he's like, no, I can't do this. Like, this isn't right. It almost seemed like he had like a moral coming to truth moment for himself. And he just walks out, and he just disappears from there. And, that's where things get really fucking messy, This is why communication is so important. And it doesn't necessarily even have to go into the realm of BDSM. Like, people get tired of one another, right? It's too much of a fantasy to think that one person can satisfy all of your emotional and sexual needs forever, right? Like, maybe here and there that might be possible, but to think that that's like the average is kind of it's kind of like living in La La Land. Okay, I think that it's really healthy to be able to have those conversations and say, hey, I'm looking for just a little bit more excitement, a little more variety. That doesn't mean I want to leave you. It doesn't mean that I think poorly of you or that you've been doing a bad job or anything like that. I just want to try something else, right? And so I think all couples should be able to have that openness to explore that conversation, what the rules would look like within that if they were to move forward, right? Maybe they do it together, right? As like doing like threesomes. Maybe they swing, right? Maybe they date a little bit, right? So like I know this lady, I've known her for a couple of years now, and she's married. She's got a husband, she's got a young son, and she's got a boyfriend on the side, and he's got a girlfriend on the side. And everybody knows each other. Like, so like the wife knows the girlfriend. They don't really like hang out, but they know each other. So like if she were to call, she'd be like, oh, hey, listen, let me get, Brian, or I don't know what his name is. Vice versa. Like there's no animosity. They know each other, and they know that like the girlfriend and the boyfriends don't want to encroach on their thing that they have got going on. They have a desire to not be in relationship any more than what they already have. and they only meet like once a week, right? And I think that's enough, right? You meet with another person once a week, maybe even once every 2 weeks, and that would be enough to kind of like put in a little mix in your situation. But again, requires a lot of communication, and it's a test of your trust, right? But yeah, I don't think that it's fair to say, it's like, oh, you can't forever, right? You can't touch another person forever. I think that's just weird, It's like, relax on that. Let's just talk about it. Let's talk about options. But yeah, the husband, he fucking broke down. He lost his shit. I think Antonio did a very good job acting in this. He didn't have many scenes, but the ones that he was in was really good. And then there was something interesting that happened at the end, and it shows them, the husband and wife having sex, and apparently, I guess like her first orgasm was with Samuel, and she was on her stomach, and he had like pulled up her dress. And I think beforehand he had told her to take off her underwear, and he was fingering her and brought her to orgasm that way. And so in this last sex scene between the husband and wife, the husband was doing the exact same thing. Okay. So she instructed him around like what to do. Okay. And as the dutiful husband who wants to keep his wife happy, it like that didn't like rub me the wrong way, because it's like now he's following what she, like, yes, what she wants, but it's like almost like she's guiding him. And I guess in one respect that's okay, because it's like, one should advocate for their own pleasure, right? If your partner is not able to do these things, you need to instruct them on how to please you. All right. But on the other hand, it's like she's like using him based on the experience that she had with Samuel. All right. And she's like fantasizing about the first hotel scene. So while she's getting off with her husband, she's got her eyes closed and she's thinking about Samuel. So it reminds me of that red pill-ism. What's it called? Alpha widowing, right? So it's like almost like she was alpha widowed by this kid, by Samuel. And so he was the one who like opened her up, and now she's just fantasizing about him taking control while her husband is doing the manual work. And, that's kind of fucked up, but, that's life. Women will fantasize about all kinds of things when you're fucking them. And they may not be thinking about you. And then other times they're right there present. And other times they're thinking about you, but in a different context. Like I know, my girl gets off by thinking about fantasies. She probably thinks about other men she's been with. And I know that she thinks about me. So it's, you don't know how it's going to develop, but I found that last scene to be interesting. I guess it's truthful, but I would rather it have been like she was just engrossed with her husband rather than using his body while fantasizing about Samuel. But you never know how things will turn out, right? Maybe he learns about it. Maybe they talk about it later. And he goes into this deep dive into power dynamics, and he then becomes a very solid dom, and and now he becomes the source of her pleasure rather than her fantasies about Samuel, right? So you never know how these things turn out. And that's why I think it's very good to be flexible, because you really don't know how things are going to go. You don't know how things are going to pan out. And I've known couples who have experimented with certain things, like say getting into swinging, and at first, like, people are warning them. They're like, oh, this is going to destroy your marriage and this and that can happen. Okay. But some people are just saying, you know what? I'm willing to risk that, right? I'm willing to not just live in fear and then learn how to just roll with it. And so I've known couples who have gotten into swinging and it totally changed their marriage around. Everything just lit up. And now they're very excited to be with each other again. They're excited to be with other people, and then they love coming back to their center. So I think that, people should be a little less fixed, a little less closed-minded about the stuff that they've got going on in their relationships, and explore and communicate more, because this is I think one of the biggest problems in relationships, whether it's short term or long term, or you've been married for fucking 30 years. Like, people just aren't talking about their own desires and their needs and their kinks enough. Like, they feel ashamed about it, or they're afraid that the other person's going to get upset, or what have you. And at some point, you just have to say, fuck it. And say, look, this is what I like. This is what I want. Does that concern you? Is that interesting to you? How do you feel about that? And you never know how things can turn around. Who knows? They might be like, holy shit, like, I actually have the same kind of kink, and I was afraid to talk to you about it. Right? You don't know how these things will pan out. So I think it's important to communicate this stuff. And I wouldn't say, men more so than women more so than men, because I think these days, like, everybody keeps their desires and their kinks and their fantasies in a closet, and they're not really letting them out. And this causes a lot of strain, actually. As you can see in the movie, I think that if the movie were to continue, and Romy was allowed to continue to explore herself and understand herself as a submissive, and what she likes and what she doesn't like, and how she wants to feel, and getting into a dynamic with her husband, and sorting out the details of that, of like where and when that shows up. Is it 24/7, or is it only on the weekends? Is it only, or is it like the moment you wake up? Is it only in the bedroom? Once they figure out all that stuff, I think that her character would have become more balanced, because what happens is that I'd say your emotions or your spirit goes under a lot of strain after a while, when you are suppressing things about you that are actually important. And you don't know they're important until you start opening up that dam, and then things start flowing. And of course, at first, when you open up a dam, there's a big rush of water. Okay. But then things smooth out, they mellow out. Okay. And then you can become more comfortable with, who you are. And they kind of nodded at that towards the end, where this other guy, basically someone else in the office, and he's got this idea that he knows what she's about, and, she's willing to be degraded or be submissive or what have you. And he was alluding to that, like he would be into that with her, and she's welcome to come to his place, whatever. And she says, listen, asshole, if I want to be degraded, I'll pay for it. And so that was kind of like a nod to like how she's kind of grasped a hold of that side of her, which obviously would take a lot longer in real life, to be that confident. But the thing is that when, say, a person does go through the rites of becoming a submissive, tremendous strength comes from that. You have no idea the amount of strength it requires to let go of control and to hand your will to another person in whatever degree, whether it's limited or if it's 24/7. That requires a lot of effort, especially if you're someone, like Romy, who has a lot of control in her life, or you're a guy and you have a lot of control in your life, because power dynamics are not, they're not gender specific. There's plenty of guys who would love to be submissive. And I think actually as time goes on, we're going to find more and more men coming out of the closet, so to speak, and being comfortable with admitting that they enjoy being submissive in the bedroom or being submissive in certain contexts. And And while that's not for me, I'm very much in support of people, expressing the truth of their sexual interests, even if it's not sexual, right? Like I said, not all kink is sexual. Actually, most kink is not sexual. There's just a small section of kink that is sexual. And those are the aspects that most people know about. But, there's this guy that I knew of who I knew the dom. I didn't know the submissive, but I knew of him through her. And literally he just wanted to come over and clean her apartment. That's it. And of course, like she had him wear like very feminized clothing and things like that. Like, so he would wear stockings, and he made her, she made him wear like one of those little French made apron sort of things. And he would just go around, clean the apartment, and that was it. I don't know, like the good side of things, that how she would treat him. But I know there was no spanking or whipping or anything like that. He just wanted to serve. That's what he wanted to do, and feel somewhat feminized. And that's it, and he paid for this. He paid to have this opportunity with her. And there's women who pay for the same sort of stuff, right? So don't go, clutching at your pearls hearing about this stuff. There's like a whole world out there with crazy variables that what I think would make most guys' balls shrivel up into their pelvis with the reality of these things. Both with like what women would want, what some guys would want. Oh my God, that's not what men do. But then if you saw these men out in the world, you would think otherwise. Like, damn, that guy's a boss. Yeah, he's a boss who likes to be somebody's bitch. And you had no idea. So it's very hard to read things from a surface level, but hey, that's the culture we're in. We love reading things on a surface level when we have really no fucking idea what's going on with people. And we just want to make these snap judgments based off of fucking, TikTok posts. Anyways, so yeah, for Lucario's review, I would say that that everything that happens between them, as far as the dynamic aspect of it, looked very real. I found it really refreshing that it wasn't some picture perfect, stereotypical Christian Grey sort of domination, that it had some humanity and a bit of fumbling. He was an emotional guy. Like he had his outbursts, and he didn't control himself, and he wasn't calm and collected the way you expect the dom to be. And she was not picturesque submissive, so she would just like, oh yes, just leave me, like falling in. Like she had a resistance that from an emotional level looked very convincing, that I would see in real life. The only thing that I didn't think was realistic was the fucking stupid dog scene in the beginning. And then how it all played out within the workplace. I think that shit would not stand. HR would have been contacted immediately. He would have been fired immediately. And then, if he actually threatened her with something real, like, oh, she came on to me and that sort of bullshit, I don't think anyone would believe an intern who had been there for a week versus the CEO of a company, of like her own company. Like, I don't think that would have, no one would have believed him. And, she would just been like, oh, he's just trying to like gain an advantage over me because he's some disgruntled youngster, around corporate entities and that sort of shit. She could have spun it up and she should have been completely fine. But in order to kind of play into the whole drama and stuff, they had to kind of work in this fantasy that was going to occur in the workplace, and it just wouldn't have happened. So other than that, I think that the film was pretty cool. I would have liked to see a little bit more, bondage. I think that would have been more fun. like if he was restraining her senses, right? Like putting a blindfold on or a gag, tying her up. I think like just a little bit more than just like having her getting fingered like off camera while she has an orgasm. But it was cool to see the interplay of him giving commands to her, and she's like, "What?" He's like, "No, get on your knees." She's like, "I'm not getting on my knees." So yeah, there was some funny dialogue, some stupid dialogue, but overall, I think it was a good movie. Would I spend that much in the theater? Because movies in New York City are fucking expensive. Probably not. But I was in upstate New York visiting family, so it was like half the price of what it is in New York City. So we went. But yeah, it's fun. I'd recommend it, but go on to one of your sites where you can find streaming movies and watch it there. It's really not worth sitting down in the theater for. So yeah, that's that. That's my review on Babygirl. And so if you want to see it, go see it. But it's not that incredible. There's better BDSM movies. If you want to see like fantasy level BDSM movies that I kind of liked, The Story of O, which actually starts as a novel first, but it's I think it was filmed in like the late 60s perhaps, or 70s. Let's just look. Story of O movie. The Story of O, 1975. Yeah, 1975. So the filming is bad, the acting is bad, but basically, this husband takes his wife to this mansion, and it's run by this guy who's this like king dom, and he's got these like subordinate doms that like work for him, or they're like slave doms kind of. And then there's like all these like naked women around, and they're getting trained. And it's like basically like a facility for women to get trained to be submissives. And, which I think would be awesome. I think that'd be an awesome business to have. So yeah, he takes his wife there and he's like, "Honey, it'll be okay." And he just leaves her there. He leaves her in this mansion to get like chained to a wall and, basically like living on her knees. But yeah, so he, trains this woman and, goes through her experience in that. But yeah, that's a much more fun movie in my eyes than Babygirl. But yeah, so that's my little shtick on Babygirl. It was all right. So thank you guys for chilling with me on this first video of 2025. I hope your holidays and everything were really good. Please go to the website, thedominanceacademy.com, and check out what I've got going on there. I've got books to purchase, How to Be a Fantastic Lover, as well as a couple other ones, and one of them is free. And you can contact me through the website or at the description of this video to set up free calls. And we can talk about whatever you like around dating, marriage, sex, power dynamics, what have you. All right. Until next time, take it easy.